Hello, my name is Samantha. My pronouns are she, her, and today we are getting into the numbers. Today I'm going to tell you exactly how much money I spent on cross stitch in 2023. We are getting into the details. I am also going to be talking about some goals I have for stitching for 2024. I have so far this year, it's January 28th as I'm filming this, I have had 7 starts and 4 finishes so far this year, so I'm going to show you those. And then I'm going to talk about some of the series I plan on working on, some of the sales I plan on participating in for this year. So I am not going to make you wait. We are starting off with the number. How much money in total did I spend on cross stitch in 2023? I spent $637.10. That's the big number. Okay, so let's break that down. All right. I broke it down by category. So I have floss, fabric, patterns, finishing, and other. In total on floss, I spent $43.68. On fabric, I spent $353.92. On patterns, I spent $213.17. On finishing, I spent $18.96. And other, I spent $7.37. So let's talk about it now that the big numbers are out of the way. So going in order of size of category. So clearly the biggest category was fabric. 55% of all that I spent this year, I spent on fabric. That was unusual for me. So I want to talk about kind of the circumstances that went into that. Not excuses. I'm not excusing any of these numbers. I am comfortable with the choices I made, but let's just talk about it. So fabric was $353.92. Most of that, the big majority of that, came early in the year when Cross Stitching Supplies, she decided to close her shop. And other than fabric I would get at Michael's, I would get my fabric from crossstitchingsupplies.com. But she announced that, and with with a couple months notice, that she would be closing her shop soon. So she put items on sale, and it was like, if you want to get it now, and I wanted it, I got it now. And so I bought a lot more fabric than I would normally buy. Typically, what I would do is buy fabric when I was ready to start a project. But given this circumstance, I was like, let's just get it now. I'm getting it on sale. Like, she already had great prices, which is why I bought from her. But now they're discounted even further because she's closing the shop. And so I was like, I'm comfortable making these larger than usual purchases to then have this fabric. And so then I asked myself, as I was putting the numbers together this morning, well, so I know that I made those big purchases. Did I then also just continue to buy fabric throughout the year, or did I kind of limit it? And good thing I limited my other fabric purchases. There were only 4 months in 2023 that I purchased fabric. 2 of those months I spent over $100, and the other 2 months I spent $40 and $50, like 40 something and 50 something, and nothing else other than that. So I was pleased to see that, given or known that I spent more than usual, I then didn't need to buy other fabric throughout the year. So it was somewhat contained to that circumstance. And I then used that fabric throughout the year. So I'm comfortable with that. But so that's how the fabric purchasing went. The next biggest category was patterns. And on patterns, I spent $213.17, which, again, that seems like a lot. And again, there were circumstances where, maybe just there's always going to be circumstances. But I do feel like around the same time this year, there were 3 or 4 people who were either closing their shops or had certain life circumstances where I wanted to support that designer by purchasing a few of their patterns. And so I chose to do that. And so then again, I looked at I know I had those bigger chunks of buying. What did the rest of the year look like? And this was interesting. So I went looking through my list. And so there, I'll show it to you. So this is my purchases. So I have like the month, the date, the category, how much I spent, and then I total up like floss total, fabric total, and then monthly total. That's how I did it. So for when I would purchase multiple patterns at a time, I didn't make a note of like how many patterns that was. So I don't know how many total patterns I bought. But so, okay, looking through those notes, there were 3 months where I didn't buy any patterns. There were 5 months where I spent less than $10 on patterns. And then 4 months where I spent over $35. So like there was no in between. Like months where I spent between $10 and $35 did not exist for me in 2023. It was either a few dollars here and there, or it was over $35. So I'm thinking though, like for me, as long as you can limit the number that are going to be over 35, a few dollars here and there is completely doable. So, you know, it was more than I would have typically purchased, but one, I'm fine with what I did. And that's the other thing that I had been aware of, because I did this last year too. Well, I started, so in 2022, I kept track between April and December. And so I wanted to do it again for this year. So I have I kept track for all of 2023. And one of the things that I thought of when I was tracking in 22 was that I would like to space purchases out more. And I still want to do that because that still sounds like a good idea. Like you'd think generally if you space purchases out, you may end up spending less. And I still think that still sounds true to me. But I don't want to, in trying to do that, I don't want to, like if I'm having a slow, or a month where I'm not purchasing much, I don't want to like add things to that just to try and balance it out. Like I don't want to purchase something I don't have, like if I know I'm not going to use it that month, if I'm not stitching a lot that month or whatever, I don't want to buy things just to try and balance out from other months. But I would like to stretch out. It's still a goal. It's still a goal. So the next biggest category was floss. This was $43.68, which actually, comparing to the amount I spent on floss in 2022 from April to December, was actually more than the total I spent through all of 2023. And it's not that I was any more stingy with floss buying this year. I think what I assume it is that because I've been stitching for several years, I just have a good stash of floss. So most of the patterns that I start, I already have most, if not all, of the floss for them. Because all of my floss is DMC. So one, that brings the price down. But two, you know, you've been stitching for a while. I've got, you know, a good stash of floss. I'm not going to need to buy as much because I already have it. So I'm thinking that's why it's less. And then next was finishing, $18.96. Now, one, I hardly ever FFO projects. So that's part of the reason it's low. Two, if I do FFO a project, it's usually in a frame. I buy my frames from Michael's, and I'll typically wait until they have their buy one get two free sale on frames. So I think this year I bought one frame, and then I bought some hoops to finish some ornaments. So like for other people, their finishing category might be much higher because typically finishing can be very expensive. The way I do it, it's not. And I hardly ever do it. So that's why mine is low. And then the last category being other was $7.37. This, for me this year, I think was just needles were in the other category, which I also bought from Cross Stitching Supplies, and I'm good for the next several years on needles, so I'm not anticipating to need to buy them this year. But other could be things like if I needed a new pair of scissors, things like that. So let's see, what else can we say about purchasing? So I also calculated my average expense. So, and again, this was not spaced evenly over the months, but if you took the total divided by 12, my monthly average for floss was $364. My monthly average for fabric was $29.49. My monthly average for patterns was $17.76. My monthly average for finishing was $1.58, and the monthly average for other was 61 cents, which totals to a monthly average of $53.08, which again typically feels for me like a lot, but a lot of that was the fabric that I bought earlier in the year, which again I'm using and I'm fine with. The other thing about fabric purchasing is that I typically don't buy fabric for just one project. I'll typically get a larger size of it, and then I can use it for like 2 or 3 patterns, or I can get a bunch of smalls on there. So I'll pay the bigger amount up front, but then be able to use it for multiple projects, so it's actually less money. I mean, one, it's less money for the larger piece by itself, but then I'm also using that for multiple things. So that's another thing that I do to kind of mitigate that expense. So I also say, before I get into other like goals and things I've been working on, talking about like why I keep track of it, why and why I talk about it, because I've heard maybe 1, maybe 2 other people ever talk about actual numbers in their hobby, their craft hobby, or cross stitching in particular. So one, I started it because I wanted to know for myself, but I also wanted to share it because, one, there's I'd say probably most crafting hobbies, including cross stitch, there are ways of doing it that are more affordable, and there are ways of doing it that are more expensive. And whatever your budget is, whatever you are comfortable with spending, is wherever you are on that line. And as long as that works for you, it works for you. I think a lot of the hobby can look more expensive than it needs to be. Where, like, there's nothing wrong with spending money that you have on things that you want to spend money on. But for someone who doesn't have the same budget, it can appear to be that there's not a way for them to participate. And I don't think that that's true. For some people, it would be cost prohibitive, even if it was at the low end of the like average spectrum. But I don't ever want to say that someone can't participate because they don't have the same budget as anyone else. So I always do like to talk about, that I always get things like, I will buy patterns on Etsy when they're on sale. Michaels always has at least a 20% coupon. They also like I mentioned with the frames that I buy, they will have buy one, get 2 free. That is an incredible deal for frames. You can get frames at thrift stores. I've seen a lot of people talk about that. You can, assuming to have the money up front, you can buy the larger piece of fabric and then use it for multiple projects rather than just one. I do like to talk about ways of doing this more affordably. I stitch on Aida, which is typically more affordable than other fabrics. I use DMC, which is more affordable than other floss. Like, you have projects that are just as beautiful, just as meaningful, and that, don't cost as much as doing it with other materials. And that, like, it's going to be beautiful and meaningful no matter what materials you use. So, I do think that that's important to say, because I do want this to be a craft that as many people as possible feel welcomed into. And I don't want anyone to feel like they can't do it because there are people who have budgets that are different than theirs. So I like to talk about it. And also, I also want to say that the amount of money I spent, for some people, they spent more. For some people, they spent less. Some people can spend more. Some people have to spend less. It's all wherever you are, what you're comfortable with, what your budget is, the other responsibilities that you have. There are people who have responsibilities that I don't have. I don't have children that I need to, spend money on. I have a cat who's very expensive, but I don't have kids. So the money that I'm bringing in, I can spend on this. The time that I spend on this, I can spend on this. So it's different for everyone, and that is okay. And it's okay to talk about how much you spent on cross stitch. You don't have to. But I chose to. So, okay. So let's talk about some goals for stitching in 2024. Okay. I basically have 2 goals for stitching for this year. So I have a list of all of the patterns that I have in stash. I figured out that I have 35 charts in stash that I have not started yet. And so one of my goals for 2024 is that I would like, of the projects that I start this year, I'd like at least 12 of them to be from that list of 35. So I want to have at least a third of those started this year. And I've already started 3 of them. So strong start there. My other goal is that of the patterns I acquired this year, so free charts plus charts that I buy, I want to start at least a third of those this year. So of all the patterns I get this year, I want to start at least 33% of them, which seems like a low goal, but I wanted to set attainable goals for these, like pretty easily attainable. So like 12 of the 35, and then a third of however many I get this year. And so I've acquired 5 patterns so far this year. I've already started 4 of them. So goal's 33%. I'm currently at 80%. And that 5th one, I have a plan to start next month. And I'm going to show that to you in just a little bit. So that's, again, strong start for my 2 stitching goals for 2024. All right, so now I'm going to show you the projects that I have started and projects I have finished so far this year. And then I'm going to talk about things that I plan to either continue or to start for this year. So the first one I started January 1st. It's my New Year, New Start. It is the All Hallows Eve sampler by Joan Elliott. And what I did with this one, so 2 things I want to talk about. One, I took out the letters and the numbers, so I shortened it a little bit. And I will say, if you do that, considering the border, so you can see the little like boxes like along the very trim of the border. If you take out the letters and the numbers, so typically there's 2 spaces between each little box of the border. If you take those 2 sections out, the space at the very bottom, there's just going to be 1 space instead of 2. So and then it lines up slightly differently. So don't stitch off, don't count off the edge once you get to that point. So just be aware of that. And then there'll be 1 space instead of 2 at the very bottom. So that doesn't bother me, but just know if you choose to take those out, it's going to be slightly different at the bottom, and it'll line up slightly differently between the pattern and the border. So let me show you where I'm at with that. So this is my New Year, New Start. And the other thing that I did with this one that I didn't I didn't mean to do it, it just sort of worked out that way, is that I stitch on this monogamously for 13 days. Yeah, 13 days straight I stitched on just this. So I've made a lot of progress on it, and then 2 more days since then, I think. So a total of 15 days. So there's a lot to talk about it, but we'll start by showing it to you. So this is where I'm at. So I'm almost done. This is the bottom here. So I'm stitching this on 18 count vintage country mocha, and I'm using the yellow color is the called for, but the black, I'm using black etoile. So I'll see if any of this shows up for you. We'll see. I don't know if, yeah. You can see it. Yeah. I think. Okay. So the black is all on etoile. And so this as a banded, so in my whip parade, yes, included, last year I finished the Summer Band Sampler by Tiny Modernist. And one of the things I talked about in my whip parade was that I did it, like I started in the center, but then went like band by band. And I mean, it wasn't super annoying, but it was kind of annoying because like I'd finish a band and then I'd be like, why am I not done with this? Like you got a good rectangle there. And it's like, why am I not done? Oh, there's another band. So going into this banded piece, I kept that in mind. And so then I started in the top right. Okay. Which I'm a center starter. I've never started in the top right before, but I did that. And then as you can see, did it diagonally for the whole thing, and that worked so well. I wasn't annoyed at all. Like it completely took out I have to do another section, another band. Like not at all. So any other banded project I do, I'm doing it at an angle. It worked perfectly. I am so pleased with this one. And so this is 15 days of stitching. I'm so excited with it. Okay, so next one, refer to my notes. Okay, then I had on January 14th, so I did that for 13 days, and then on the 14th, I started, where is it? I've got a little pile going here. Wait, is it here? Where is it? Okay, I found it. So January 14th, finished the 15th, I started Ceasefire Now by Tetris with Tam. It's a little, the white is kind of hard to see in this light. There, you can see it a little better there. A lot of the ones that I started this year are for Palestine. I did three for Palestine last year. I've got 3 or 4 this year. But yeah, so I mean, as I'll be mentioning later, I definitely plan to continue the stitchers for Palestine because obviously. So I did this one, and then also started on the 14th, finished on the 19th. I did, goes this way, South Africa. This is designed by Tetris with Danduna. This is the flag of South Africa. This is the flag of South Africa, stitched in the Palestinian Tetris motifs. Again, for obvious reasons. I mean, I guess I'll say, I don't know if you, South Africa brought a case of genocide against Israel in the International Court of Justice. For as far as we are in the case, they won the case. The ICJ ruled basically that Israel has to stop committing genocidal acts against the people of Palestine. So that's a win. Like, the case is still ongoing, but for the part we're at now, an incredible debt of gratitude is owed to South Africa. Next, not to flippantly move on from that. Like, I have several Palestinian pieces to show you, but so next I started my 2024 temperature chart. This is by Stitched Modern, and I'm this far so far, but I'll tell you that I'm going to be restarting this. It's on a 14 count white. Oh, sorry. This was This was on a 18 count blue, light blue. This is on a 18 count white. And then this one is on a 14 count white. Now I still want to do 14 count white, but this fabric from Michaels just isn't it. Like it feels not great. The holes are enormous. Like so I'm thinking I'm going to order some nicer 14 count white and just restart it. And with the kind of pattern it is, like it's very simple to keep up with. It'll be simple to restart. So I'm going to do that, but I was working on it. So there's that one. And then, okay, what is next? So next is a pattern by Night Spirit Studio. It might be my first Night Spirit Studio. Maybe? Might be. Okay, so started January 15th on 18 count curry. I have Greetings from Beyond. So this is what it will look like when it's done. And this is what it looks like now. And okay, the interesting thing about this one. So all of the candles I stitched with 2 threads, but all the rest of it I'm stitching with 1 thread. Now, typically I am a 2-thread stitcher. Last year I did, I think 2 projects that I did just with 1 thread that I'm thinking I might sometimes be a 1 thread, sometimes a 2 threads now. But because it's basically full coverage, it's not exactly, but because it's basically, the 2 threads on this 18 count was just too bulky. So I like I like the candles, but for the rest of it, I'm going to do in 1 thread. But I think for what it's going to look like, it's sort of smoky, sort of this like mystical kind of. Having that in 1 thread where it like you can tell, like this is 2 threads white, this is 1 thread white. It's gonna have that smoky look to it, and like it sort of accidentally worked out that way, but like it totally worked out that way. And so I'm very excited to see what this will be like finished. So I'm excited for this one. And then let's see, 2 more. So I had my first Quirky Quaker by Darling and Whimsy I started. This is Quirky Quaker Watermelon for Palestine. You can't, again, the white's there. The white's showing up a little better there. Started January 24th and finished the 25th. Quirky Quaker Watermelon. This is on a 14 count aqua. There's that one. And then last one, most recent, I have this back in the bag. This is what it'll look like. This is Free Watermelon by Last Spoon Saloon. And this is what I have so far. This is on a 18 count white stitched with 1 thread. Yeah, okay. So I have part of the first E. So I have that one. So yeah, that's what I've been working on so far. So next I'm going to talk about, I've got a few series that I want to continue with, some of them finish for this year, and then 2 sales that I'm going to be starting both next month. So the first one is, oh, sorry, and then I had another finish for this year. So this was finished last night. This is Halloween Silhouettes Scarecrow. This is by Doreen Jones. This is on a 18 count oatmeal. And this pattern, it came with, it's a set of 4. So I already had finished the haunted house and the owl. Now I have the scarecrow, and then the last one is the cat. So this is scarecrow. And then, okay, so now we're on to getting more into plans. So starting with series. So the, which bag? It's in this bag. Okay. Also, I'll say, so I don't use project bags, except yesterday I bought these 2 from Michaels. They both have multiple projects in them. I keep just the fabric in there. This bag is like the ones I'm like currently rotating through, that 5 or 6. This bag is the 7 or 8 that I'm like actively working on, but not like right now. And then I have a few others that are not in a bag that are kind of like inactive whips. So, okay. So in the, wait, no, this bag. Okay. In the Sabbath series, so I've got 1.5 left. So this is Samhain, which is similar to Halloween. I'm probably about halfway done with this one. So I want to finish this. And then the only one I have left in this series is Yule, which will look like this. And so I do own the pattern, but haven't started it yet. So I want to finish Samhain and then start and finish Yule for this year. Another series is the, oh, did I grab that one? Wait, is it? It's right, it's in here. So in 2023, I was working on the 13 Moons series by the Little Stitcher, and I finished 8 monthly moons plus the blue moon. So I finished 9 of them. I'm currently on the September harvest moon. I'm almost done with this one. Just have the like 60% of that moon to fill out. I can maybe finish this today. So then I want to finish this, and then I want to do the October, November, December moons. I'll be finished with this series. So I'll work on that. And then the other series I'd like to finish this year is the mini monthly series by Stitching Cabin. And I already have January and February. And I want to finish the other monthly ones this year. I do, so I bought them all in a set. So I have them all, and I just want to stitch them throughout the year. And then the series I want to work on, but in no way finish this year. So last year I finished, this is the Calendar Girl series by Sugar Stitches, pretty sure. This is November I finished. And then in December of last year, I started January. And this is where I'm at for January. So I want to finish January, and then I want to start 2 more. So I'm not sure which 2 months those will be, but I think that's a good goal for 2024. I have November, I want to finish January, and then start 2 more. So those are the series. Yes, those are all the series. Let me look through what I have. Yes, okay. So now for the 2 sales that I want to participate in. I do want to do, so my sale goals for the year are not going to be just these 2, probably. These are the 2 that I know about, that are starting soon, that I plan on participating in. All right, so the first one starts February 10th. That is the Chinese New Year, and it is the Year of the Dragon sale. And so this, you can either start a new piece or you can work on a whip that has a dragon in it. Anything with a dragon counts for this. Go right ahead. So I do not have any projects with a dragon in them. So I was browsing through Etsy and I was like, if I find one that I like, I'll participate. And I did find one. And so this is the one that I bought. So this is the 2024 purchase pattern. I haven't started yet, but I do obviously have a set date for it. So I'm going to do just the dragon for this one. I'm not going to do the border. And I think what I want to do instead of monochrome is I want to stitch it in one of the DMC variegated. And so I was looking through the DMC website, and I think I want to go with this color. It's, I'm sure I have it right there, but it is 4205. So I don't have that one, but I can easily get that. I think that's what I'm going to do for this one. The second sale starts the next day, February 11th. That's the Super Bowl. So it is the Superb Owl sale. And again, like the dragon one, either start a new project with an owl, stitch on a project you have with an owl, anything you want to do. So again, I was browsing Etsy and I found this one. This is by Sam X Stitch. And I have a green variegated DMC. It's 4047 that I think I'm going to do for the green parts instead of doing the separate DMC colors. I think I'm going to do a variegated because it gives me like a psychedelic vibe, and I think using a variegated green would add to that psychedelic vibe. So that's my plan for the Superb Owl sale starting February 11th. So yeah, that's the money I spent on cross stitch. That's my goals for cross stitch. That's what I've been working on for cross stitch and what I plan to start. So yeah, that's the video. I don't make weekly cross stitch videos. I don't even make like, well, it's not on any regular schedule. It's just either I'll sometimes do like a 24 hours of cross stitch marathon or like weekend marathon stitching vlog. I'll sometimes do like when I bought the fabric earlier this year, I did a fabric haul. So I showed all of that if you want to see that. So I'll link my flosstube playlist down below because not all of my videos are about cross stitch, but I'll link the playlist down below if you just want to check out those. Yeah. So I will see you soon and happy stitching until then.